There's a moment every warrior meets. The one you've been pretending doesn't exist. It comes quietly at first, then it begins to whisper, and before long, it screams inside your chest. You're losing yourself in the fight to control everything. You don't even notice it happening. You wake up already tense, your mind racing to fix things that were never yours to fix. You replay conversations, arguments, outcomes. You grip tighter, speak faster, move harder, and still, everything keeps slipping away. That's the first sign of illusion. The belief that control equals strength. That if you just try harder, push further, explain more, life will finally bend to your will, but it never does. And each time it resists you, you dig your nails deeper into it, until the very thing you're holding onto begins to cut you open. I remember when I thought control was my armor. I planned every detail, predicted every reaction, managed every emotion as if the universe were a machine I could program. But the tighter I clenched my hands around life, the less of it I could actually hold. The plans fell apart. The people changed. The outcomes betrayed me. And one morning, standing in the mirror, I didn't recognize the person staring back. My reflection was tired. Not from work, from worry, from trying to make everything move according to my design. That's when it hit me like a blade through the chest. I hadn't been mastering life, I'd been suffocating it. Control had turned into obsession. And obsession always ends the same way, pain. That was the day I remembered what Marcus Aurelius wrote. You have power over your mind, not outside events. I had read those words 100 times, quoted them, shared them, believed I understood them. But I hadn't, because if I had, I wouldn't have been trying to bend the wind instead of learning to set my sail. The truth is, most of us are addicted to control because we mistake it for security. We think if we manage every variable, nothing can hurt us. But control is not safety, it's anxiety in disguise. You don't sleep peacefully because everything's perfect. You sleep peacefully when you've stopped fighting what you can't change. And that's what the Stoics understood long before the rest of us. They didn't seek to dominate the world. They sought to dominate themselves. The battlefield wasn't out there, it was in here. Inside the mind. Inside the reactions. Inside the desperate need to make reality obey our expectations. The Stoic warrior doesn't win by conquering life. He wins by refusing to be conquered by it. I know you've felt it too, that exhaustion that comes not from work, but from resistance. You fight people who will never change. You chase outcomes that were never promised. You replay mistakes that can't be undone. You explain yourself to people who've already made up their minds. And still, you call it effort. You call it discipline. But it's not. It's attachment. And attachment, disguised as control, is the enemy of freedom. You've probably been told that letting go means giving up, that surrender is weakness. But ask yourself, what's weaker than needing everything to go your way just to feel calm? What's weaker than allowing every loss to break your spirit, every uncertainty to unravel your peace? The strong don't control everything. They control themselves when everything falls apart. That's what detachment really means. It's not coldness. It's clarity. It's walking through fire without letting it burn away your composure. It's watching things change, people leave, plans collapse, and saying, "This does not own me." That's real power. The kind of power you can't fake, can't lose, can't be given. It's forged in silence, in stillness, in the discipline of release. I didn't understand that at first. I thought detachment was something you learn through study. But it's something you live through suffering. You learn it the moment life rips something out of your hands that you thought you couldn't live without. And then you realize you're still standing. You're still breathing. You're still here. And the world didn't end. That's when you begin to see it. Freedom doesn't come from holding on. It comes from letting go. You want to know what's killing your peace. It's not what's happening around you. It's your refusal to accept that you were never meant to control it in the first place. The Stoics called this the dichotomy of control. The wise man divides everything into two categories: what's within his power and what's not. Everything else is wasted energy. Every minute spent trying to control the uncontrollable is a minute stolen from mastering yourself. So stop, just stop for a second, look around. Notice how many things are demanding your reaction: news, opinions, expectations, people, noise. And then ask yourself, how much of it actually deserves your energy? You've been gripping the rope so tightly that your hands are bleeding. But the pain isn't punishment, it's instruction. It's life telling you, you can let go now. And when you finally do, when you release what was never yours to begin with, you'll feel something you haven't felt in a long time: stillness. The kind that sits beneath the noise. The kind that says, you're safe even when the world isn't. That's the Stoic art of detachment. Not indifference, mastery. The freedom to move through chaos untouched, unbroken, unmoved. The strength to say, this storm may surround me, but it does not define me. And that's what I want for you, to feel that power again. To stop mistaking control for courage and start practicing the discipline of letting go. Because that's where your transformation begins. If this message finds something true inside you, if you can feel that quiet fire awakening beneath the surface, then stay with me. Subscribe to the channel and help me build a space for warriors like you, people who choose discipline over noise, clarity over chaos, peace over control. This journey is not about escaping the world. It's about mastering yourself within it. Now, before we move forward, let me ask you something. Something that might reveal where you truly stand. Question: when life stops obeying your plans, what do you do? A: fight harder to control it. B: let go and master your response. Comment A or B below. Your answer might tell you whether you're still chasing control or finally ready for freedom. I used to think the opposite of control was chaos. That if I didn't manage every detail, everything would collapse. But I was wrong. The opposite of control isn't chaos, it's trust. And that's the one thing I didn't have. I trusted nothing, no one, not even myself. Every plan I made had to unfold exactly as I imagined. Every person in my life had to behave according to my script. Every failure, every delay, every unexpected turn felt like a personal betrayal. I wasn't living, I was negotiating with reality, demanding that it fit my blueprint. But life doesn't take orders. The universe isn't a contract. It's a current. And the harder you fight the current, the faster you sink. I learned that the hard way. It started small: missed opportunities, relationships that slipped away, plans that unraveled no matter how careful I was. Each time, I doubled down, worked harder, spoke louder, explained more, tried to convince life that it owed me compliance. But life doesn't bargain. It reveals. It shows you, over and over, that attachment is self-inflicted pain. That the tighter you grip, the more it hurts when things inevitably change. I remember one particular night, the kind you never forget, because it breaks something inside you that can never be put back together. I was standing in my apartment, lights off, phone in my hand, staring at a message that ended something I thought was permanent. My mind raced through every reason, every defense, every version of myself that could have stopped it from happening. I typed out a dozen replies and deleted them all. For the first time in years, I had nothing left to say. Just silence. And in that silence, I saw something terrifying and liberating all at once. I wasn't in control, and I never had been. That moment stripped me bare. But beneath the pain, something else emerged: relief. The exhaustion I'd been carrying, the tension in my chest, the constant pressure to hold everything together. It began to fade. Because when there's nothing left to cling to, you're finally free to stand on your own. That was my first taste of detachment, not through enlightenment, but through collapse. The Stoics understood this better than anyone. They didn't preach detachment as philosophy. They practiced it as survival. Epictetus lost everything, his freedom, his possessions, his health. Yet he said, "It is not what happens to you, but how you react that matters." He wasn't speaking about indifference. He was speaking about liberation. When you detach from the illusion of control, you reclaim the one thing no one can take, your response. Most people think they're afraid of loss, but what they're really afraid of is facing themselves without what they cling to. The job title that defines them, the relationship that validates them, the possessions that disguise their insecurity. Take those away, and the silence that remains terrifies them, because it forces them to meet the one person they've been avoiding, themselves. But here's what the Stoics discovered in that silence. When you lose what's not essential, what's real finally appears. When the noise fades, truth speaks. When you stop grasping, your hands are finally open to receive what actually matters. Letting go isn't easy. It feels like death because, in a way, it is the death of illusion. The death of the story that you could control everything. But on the other side of that death is something astonishing. Peace, real peace. The kind that doesn't depend on outcomes, on approval, on certainty. The kind that can stand in the middle of the storm and say, "This too is part of the path." That's what detachment gives you. It doesn't remove emotion, it refines it. It doesn't kill love, it purifies it. When you let go of needing everything to stay the same, you start to see the beauty in change itself. You stop loving people for what they give you, and start loving them for who they are, free, impermanent, human. You stop working for validation and start working for purpose. You stop speaking to convince and start acting to become. And when you reach that point, when you finally accept that the world doesn't revolve around your plans, something incredible happens. You begin to move with life instead of against it. The chaos doesn't disappear, but it stops frightening you. Because now, you know, the current that once felt like your enemy is the very thing carrying you forward. That's the paradox of detachment. The moment you stop fighting to control everything is the moment everything starts to fall into place. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Stay with me, because what comes next isn't about giving up control. It's about mastering yourself so completely that control becomes unnecessary. It's about transforming chaos into clarity. And when you understand that shift, you'll never look at life the same way again. There's something strange that happens when you finally let go. At first, you think the world will collapse. You imagine that if you stop controlling everything, your life will fall apart, that you'll lose your purpose, your direction, your identity. But what actually happens is the opposite. When you stop forcing things, life doesn't fall apart. It starts to reveal its own rhythm. It's almost as if the universe was waiting for you to stop shouting long enough to listen. The silence after surrender is unsettling. I won't lie to you, it's not peaceful right away. It feels like standing at the edge of a cliff, staring into the unknown. Your instincts scream to grab onto something, anything, to fill the space that control once occupied. But if you can stand there long enough, you'll start to notice something extraordinary. The world doesn't need your control to keep spinning. It moves on its own. It breathes, it unfolds. And you're a part of that movement, not its master. That realization hit me one morning when I was sitting alone, watching the sunrise through the window. I had no plan for the day, no checklist, no agenda. Just the sound of my breath and the light filling the room. For the first time, I felt the full weight of the truth Marcus Aurelius wrote centuries ago. Accept whatever comes to you woven in the pattern of your destiny, for what could more aptly fit your needs? I didn't fully understand it until that moment. It means that life is already unfolding the way it must. The more you resist its pattern, the more you suffer. The more you align with it, the more you see that even what you call misfortune was never working against you. It was working through you. It was a quiet revelation, not a dramatic one. No lightning bolt, no divine voice, Just a calm understanding that my need for control had been blocking the flow of everything good that was trying to reach me. The friendships I was clinging to had already served their purpose. The plans that failed weren't punishments, they were redirections. Every loss, every delay, every silence was preparing me for a kind of strength I didn't even know I needed. That's when I began to understand what the Stoics meant by living according to nature. It doesn't mean following instincts blindly. It means living in alignment with reality instead of your fantasy of how reality should be. The river doesn't argue with the rocks, it flows around them. The tree doesn't fight the storm, it bends with it. And yet, both remain rooted, both endure. That's the art of detachment, to bend without breaking, to flow without losing your direction, to endure without resistance. People often ask me, how do I know if I've truly let go? The answer is simple. When you can look at something or someone you once feared to lose and feel gratitude instead of panic, peace instead of desperation, that's when you've let go. When you can face uncertainty without needing to predict its outcome, that's when detachment becomes freedom. I used to think I needed to control my life to live it fully. Now I know the opposite is true. The less I try to control, the more alive I feel. The more I release, the more I receive. The more I let go of what I thought I wanted, the closer I get to what I truly need. And maybe that's the secret the Stoics were trying to pass down through centuries. Not to stop caring, but to start trusting. To stop gripping life as if it's something to be tamed and start walking with it as something sacred, unpredictable, and endlessly alive. Because when you finally stop resisting, you don't lose yourself. You find the part of you that was never afraid to let go. There's a calm that comes after surrender, but it's not the kind of calm most people imagine. It isn't the peace of still waters or quiet rooms. It's the peace of standing in a storm and realizing you no longer need to fight it. You stop demanding explanations. You stop trying to make sense of everything that happens to you. You simply breathe and observe. That's when life starts to reveal its deeper order, the one hidden beneath all the noise. But the moment you taste that peace, life will test you. It always does. The universe will send you something or someone that shakes your resolve. Maybe a betrayal, maybe a loss, maybe a door that slams shut right when you thought you were finally free. And in that moment, every part of you will want to reach back, to cling, to explain, to fix what's falling apart. That's the old self calling, the one addicted to control. It happened to me not long after I thought I'd mastered detachment. I was calm, focused, balanced, or so I believed. Then something unexpected happened. Something that threatened to undo all of that in an instant. A project I had built with years of effort collapsed overnight. Not because of failure, but because of the actions of people I trusted. I felt betrayed, exposed, humiliated. The urge to react was overwhelming. My mind raced with words I wanted to say, actions I wanted to take, revenge I wanted to imagine. But underneath that chaos, I heard a whisper. Will you fall back into the noise, or will you practice what you've learned? So I didn't speak. Not that night, not the next day. I stayed silent, not out of pride, but out of discipline. I watched my anger rise, crash, and fade like waves against rock. And when it finally quieted, I saw the truth I couldn't see before. It wasn't the betrayal that hurt me most. It was my belief that I could prevent it. My pain was born from the illusion that I was ever in control of anything beyond myself. That's when I understood something Seneca wrote. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. I had been fighting ghosts, my own expectations, my fantasies of fairness, my longing for things to make sense. But life isn't fair. It's faithful. It gives you exactly the lesson you need, disguised as the one you fear. In the silence that followed, I began to rebuild, not the project, but myself. I learned that silence isn't avoidance. It's strength. It's the decision to protect your peace instead of performing your pain. The old version of me would have explained, defended, tried to prove my worth. The new version simply acted, quietly, consistently, without announcement. And slowly, results began to replace words. That's when I realized something profound. Detachment is not withdrawal from life, it's mastery within it. It's the ability to move through chaos untouched, to love deeply without losing yourself, to act decisively without clinging to the outcome, to speak only when words are necessary, and to remain silent when silence speaks louder. That's what the Stoics meant when they said that tranquility is not found in retreat, but in the alignment of your actions with your principles. You don't escape the world to find peace. You bring peace into the world by mastering yourself within it. You don't stop feeling. You start feeling correctly. And when you live this way, people notice. They can't quite explain it, but they feel it. The quiet gravity of someone who no longer needs to prove anything. That's the power of detachment. It's not about being above others. It's about being beneath no one, not even your own emotions. It's the kind of power that can't be taken, because it no longer depends on anything external. It's earned, refined, and lived in silence. There's a strange thing that happens when silence becomes your way of life. At first, people misunderstand it. They think you've grown distant, cold, detached. They don't see that silence isn't absence, it's alignment. It's not that you have nothing to say. It's that you've finally learned when not to speak. And that shift changes everything. When you stop wasting words, your presence begins to speak for you. I noticed this transformation slowly. I didn't announce it. I didn't tell people, I'm working on myself, or I'm becoming more disciplined. I simply started living differently. When I was frustrated, I didn't explain. When I was insulted, I didn't defend. When I was misunderstood, I didn't correct. It wasn't about pride, it was about peace. Because I'd learned that the more I tried to control how others saw me, the less control I had over myself. And the moment I stopped performing for approval, I became free. That freedom felt unfamiliar at first. You'd think peace would feel light, but it doesn't, not at the beginning. It feels heavy, almost unbearable, because it demands responsibility. There's no one left to blame, no one left to impress, no one to hide behind. It's just you, your thoughts, your choices, your truth. And you realize that this is what the Stoics meant by sovereignty, self-rule, the ability to stand alone, unshaken while the world trembles around you. I began to notice how the noise of life, opinions, judgments, expectations, had always pulled me away from myself. Every time I reacted, I lost a piece of my power. Every time I sought validation, I handed someone else the keys to my peace. But when I stayed silent, when I chose restraint over reaction, something shifted. I became an observer rather than a participant in chaos. I saw how people spoke from their wounds, not their wisdom. I saw how most arguments were just two egos fighting to be seen. And I realized I didn't need to win those battles anymore. Winning them had never brought peace. There's a line from Marcus Aurelius that I read every morning now. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. It sounds simple, but it's the hardest thing I've ever practiced. To stop explaining. To stop convincing. To stop narrating my growth and simply become it. But the more I lived it, the more everything around me changed. People stopped testing me. Opportunities began to appear quietly, naturally, without force. I stopped chasing, and what was meant for me started arriving, without noise, without struggle, without panic. That's when I understood the full circle of detachment. It begins with loss, deepens with silence, and ends with creation. You start by letting go of everything you thought defined you, and you end by building something unshakable within. The world outside still shifts, but your center holds. That's the essence of Stoic mastery. To remain grounded not because life is easy, but because you've stopped demanding that it should be. The more I practiced this, the more I realized how rare it is to meet people who are truly calm. Not quiet because they have nothing to say, but quiet because they understand everything doesn't need to be said. That's real strength, the kind that doesn't need an audience, doesn't depend on applause. And when you live like that, you start to radiate something others can feel but can't explain. It's not charisma. It's not confidence. It's presence. You don't earn that through speaking more. You earn it through mastering less reactivity, less need, less noise. The world starts to mirror your discipline. The storms don't stop, but they start to respect your stillness. And so, here's what I want to leave you with. Stop trying to prove your strength through words. Show it through your restraint. Stop trying to control every outcome. Master your mind, and the outcomes will follow. Stop trying to hold on to what's leaving. Let it go and watch what remains. It's always what's real. I know it's hard. I know your instinct will always tell you to fight, to explain, to hold tighter. But trust me, I've lived both sides. I've lived as the person who reacted to everything and lost myself in the process. And now, I live as the person who lets things fall away, who speaks little but means every word. And I've never felt stronger. So if this message finds you in that place between control and surrender, I want you to remember this. Letting go isn't the end of something. It's the beginning of everything. Walk this path with me. Practice this discipline. Learn to move through the noise with calm eyes and a steady heart. You'll see, silence will start speaking for you in ways your voice never could. If you feel this truth stirring inside you, if you're ready to stop reacting and start mastering yourself, then subscribe to the channel. Because here, we don't chase motivation, we train discipline. We don't talk about peace, we practice it. And together, we're building a brotherhood of warriors who choose stillness over noise, clarity over confusion, mastery over reaction. Your journey doesn't begin tomorrow. It begins right now with one decision: to let go, to listen, to live with discipline. This is the Stoic path. And once you walk it, there's no going back.